Hello again. In this video, once again, I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the politics that go on in martial arts. And I wanted to talk about some more memories that I have of Thomas from Chung Oh's school, who was one of Chung Oh's two sons. The one who ran a school in Windsor for many, many years and was fortunately not in Kitchener very often at the main school where I trained and most of us trained. And I'm watching some news here right now, so this is just this is a report on the war in Ukraine that's going on. And anytime I wanted to do a video on this because anytime I see Kim Jong-un in the news, it reminds me of Thomas from Chung Oh's school, because he was exactly like that. He always came across as being like a little dictator, kind of like a man child or like a man baby or whatever you want to call it, always making himself the center of attention and always belittling and putting down other students and trying to embarrass other students anytime possible, and always doing it with malice, always trying to harm somebody, never doing anything for their benefit. Always had to make himself the center of attention. And I can think of some examples from tournaments. For example, there was a tournament where there was also breaking competition inside of it. And one of the students, I think his name was Eric, was doing a roundhouse kick break. And he broke, I think it was like 4 boards with a roundhouse kick. So it was really good. And when he broke the boards, he let out kind of a, oh, type of sound. He key-upped and then, it was kind of like a groan or an, like that after he finished. And initially, of course, there were some giggles, a little bit of laughter from the crowd. And then, of course, everybody clapped and it was like, congratulations, you broke the boards, right? When they saw them break. It was impressive. And right away, Thomas jumped up from the head table where all the other master and grandmaster judges and instructors were. And he right away wanted to make up a new rule on the spot of how you're supposed to key up when you're doing the board breaking. And he wanted to take points away from Eric because of the fact that he let out that groan. Instead of just doing a key up and then bowing and walking off, he let out that groan and then bowed and was going to sit down. So he wanted to take points away from Eric because of the sound that he made after the break was completed. So he basically derailed the tournament for like 10 minutes as all the different head instructors squabbled back and forth and argued. Thomas made himself the center of attention. And of course, in the process, he was belittling Eric and embarrassing Eric by making an issue out of something that was really a non-issue and shouldn't have been an issue at all. But he derailed the tournament for 10 minutes, to the point that people there are watching. I mean, there were the students at the tournament, there's the parents of the students at the tournament, and of course there's other visitors, family, whoever, that are there watching, guests, whoever. So it's a packed house there. And so, I mean, people are starting to wonder, like, why won't this guy sit down and just shut up? Let's get on with the tournament here. So that in a nutshell, and I can think of many more examples besides that one, but that in a nutshell is an example of Thomas. And it was interesting because a comment came up recently in the comment section talking about another student who mentioned that he's always been a troublemaker and he's always been like that. And so we were kind of sharing stories back and forth about Thomas. And so And I looked at this here, and this just made me laugh. I was watching this news article, but I mean, this is Thomas. Like this, like when I see him, this is him. You know, like he wants all the adulation and wants all the attention and wants everything on him. And that's very much who he is. He is very, very full of himself. And when I watched when I watch this news article and I see everybody bowing and shaking hands, I think I told the story once before about how we had Grandmaster O, which was Chung O. That was the the founder of the school. That was their father. He had two sons, Ian and Thomas, and we referred to Ian as Master Ian in order to differentiate him from his father, who was Grandmaster O. Later on, when he became Grandmaster, there was Grandmaster Ian. But we called him by his first name just to avoid confusion with his father. So you couldn't call both of them Grandmaster O and Grandmaster O because then nobody knows who you're talking about. So we had Grandmaster O was Chung O, and Grandmaster Ian was Ian O, his son. And so when Thomas was around, we called him Master. It was Master Thomas at that time. It has since become Grandmaster, but back then it was Master Thomas. And so, again, it was simply to differentiate Thomas from Ian and from Chung O, their father. It was purely an identifier so that there was no confusion who we were talking about. And I can remember one time, I didn't know this, but apparently he really hates being called Thomas, which is why I keep referring to him as Thomas in this video now. But he looked at me with such contempt. I bowed. I referred to him as Master Thomas, and he looked at me like he was just looking daggers through me. Like he was, like you couldn't have offended him more than by calling him Thomas. He was like so angry with that. And there was no harm intended. It was purely respect and purely, we call you Thomas because we call your brother Ian and we call your father Grandmaster O. It was to separate the three of them. So there was no disrespect intended. And we hardly ever saw him at the Kitchener School because he ran a school in Windsor, Ontario. That's 3 hours away. For him to be in Kitchener was a rare thing. So we hardly ever saw him to begin with. We had no idea what his students called him, and we didn't know that he didn't like the name Thomas or didn't like being referred to as Master Thomas. Anyway, that's another example of what he is like. I mean, you can bow, you can show him respect, but nothing was ever good enough. He would find a way to take offense to something. And to put out another story, because again, I'm sitting here watching this video and it just, oh my God, like the flashbacks from watching this and seeing people bowing to him. And I think somewhere in this video, they start showing this, here it is. They start showing the soldiers, the North Korean soldiers doing Taekwondo. So So I start watching this stuff here and I'm like, oh my gosh, flashbacks. I'm like, my God, this is Thomas. When I see him, it's Thomas. I swear, it's Thomas that I'm watching. It's like I'm there right now. I'm at Chung O's school and it's like we're doing a tournament right now in my mind. And here's Thomas watching. When I see Kim Jong-un, it's Thomas. There was another tournament that I was at where I was judging. So I'm on the judging panel and I'm judging the students. There's students from all the different branch schools and stuff. So I have no idea what school each student comes from. I only know the schools, the students that were at the Kitchener School, the ones that I trained with regularly. If you came from another school, I didn't know what school you came from. I gave, whatever score to one of the students while I'm doing the judging, and Thomas right away popped up and disagreed with my score. He wasn't on the judging panel, but he was wandering around in the background supervising, and right away he got upset, got angry at the score that I gave, and he removed me from the judging panel because he didn't like the score that I gave to what turned out to be one of his students from his school. So you think about that. He wanted to embarrass me and humiliate me by removing me right in the middle of the tournament. He replaced me with Shane, I think it was. So he would probably remember this, another student. Right in the middle of the tournament, right in the middle of doing the patterns, whatever was going on, he took me off the judging panel. So again, removing me because he didn't like the score that I gave to what turned out to be one of his students. So, who's really doing the judging there? Are the judges doing the judging, or is Thomas doing the judging? If you simply remove a judge the moment you disagree with one of their scores. For me, like I said, I have no idea which school any of these students belong to. I'm simply judging what I see in front of me. And it was a fair and correct score that I gave. He just didn't like it because it was his student and he wanted a higher score for his student. So that's the kind of guy that he is. He doesn't care about doing what's right. He cares about putting his students first. And if he thinks that something isn't right with his students, he'll make an example out of somebody. He doesn't care if he's humiliating somebody in front of, the parents and the spectators and everybody there, making a scene for absolutely no reason. He just does it, doesn't care. So when I saw this here, that this guy's been in the news so much lately, but like I said, every time I see Kim Jong-un, I'm instantly reminded of Thomas, because that's exactly what he was. That's exactly what he is like inside. That's him in a nutshell. So anyway, thanks for watching. Till next time, bye.